Hello, hey, hi, welcome back to another video. Today we are going through all of my makes for January. This is the first time I've done one of these videos, but I was thinking maybe to do this in the new year as kind of like a little recap, and then at the end of the year we can see everything that I've made. And so far I've made quite a lot just in January, so I'm also excited to see what I'll be making the rest of the year, and it'll be a nice thing to look back on as we finish 2026. But for now, we've only finished January, so I think without further ado, we should just get started with my makes for January. If you don't remember, I have my notebook that I'm keeping track of all of my makes for this year, what pattern I used, what yarn I used, how long it took me, all of those wonderful things are here in this notebook. And the very first thing that I finished this year was a striped cat ear beanie. I made this for my fiance because he has been wanting a cat ear beanie. He has seen people online wearing them. There was a TV show that we watched where someone was wearing a striped cat ear beanie, and so he said he wanted one. So I made him one. This is what it looks like. I love this yarn. I crocheted it with a 6mm hook. I started and finished it in one day. It only took me maybe an hour and a half. And I used some scrap yarn that I've been meaning to use, so that was really great. And it was a quick make, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm happy that it turned out really well. I don't know, it's a little bit big, but I think that's fine, and also it's very cold, and so this is much more of like a fashion hat than it is a keep you warm kind of hat. So we haven't gotten a lot of use out of it since it is still very much in the middle of winter, but I'm sure he will once things start to warm up just a little bit. The next thing I made was a commission for someone at school. It was the Granny Go Round jumper by Iron Lamb. I used the Premier Puzzle yarn and the color Crossword, and I used also a 6mm crochet hook. This took me just under a month to make. I actually started it in December of 2025, but I finished it right after the new year. I used 4 full skeins. I have just a tiny ball left over, and I honestly probably could have done another row on the bottom and been just fine. Because the pattern itself calls for a much smaller yarn, I did have to do some math to figure out how big to make it or how small to make it in order to fit a correct gauge to fit someone and not be like absolutely gigantic. So that was definitely something, but I think it turned out really well and they seem very happy with it, so that makes me happy. The next thing I made was a sleeveless hoodie. This pattern came from a magazine I got at the thrift store. It's by Noro Knits. They obviously sell a lot of like the fancy Noro yarn, so that's what they wanted. I'm not paying that much right now for this yarn, maybe one day, but I just used Red Heart Super Saver in the color Farmland. I actually got this yarn from my grandmother. It was part of her stash, and she was trying to get rid of some of it, so I took, I think 4 or 5 skeins from her, and I used a good amount of it on this sleeveless hoodie vest thing. It actually didn't originally come with a collar, the thick like turtleneck. However, I really wanted to add one, so I did. I used a 4.5mm needle, and I used about 3 skeins of the 4 or 5 that my grandmother got me. So I also have some headbands, and then I also have maybe half a skein left over that I'll have to figure out what to do. And this project took me a very long time. Because it was worked in many different pieces and it was just stockinette for like 15 inches at times before I could even start to like decrease for like shoulder shaping or armholes or anything, it got boring very fast. So I actually started it back in May of 2025, and it took me until the 8th of January to finish. So that's like, what, 6-7 months it took me, which is a long time, but it turned out really good. I think the trim on the hood is a little wavy, and I tried to like wash it and block it out, but it didn't happen. But I think it's fine. I don't think anyone's gonna bat their eye about that. But I think it turned out really cute. It fits me actually really well. I think that's one of like the first garments that I've made that I don't have a problem with like somewhere. Like either I feel like the sleeves are a little too long, it's a little too short in the waist, maybe it's a little tight in some areas, but this I felt really good about, and that it fits me pretty well. The next thing I made is a waffle stitch blanket. This was crocheted with burlap blanket in the color Sun Soaked. It's this nice kind of marigoldy color. It's my absolute favorite color ever. I used a 10mm crochet hook and I used 4 whole skeins in order to get this. I crocheted it in about a week, a little under a week it took me. And I just worked in the round of waffle stitch until I used up all 4 of my skeins. I was going to try to add a single crochet border, however I ran out of yarn, so that's not happening. And the wonderful thing about this is if I buy more yarn, I can always add on to it. It's worked in the round. I can just tie on my next ball of yarn and continue and make it bigger. The only thing is, as it gets bigger, my yarn contributes less and less to the amount of rows it has. So I don't know if I will be continuing to work on this blanket, but it is done. It's a good lap size blanket. It's very soft, very warm, and I'm really happy with it. The next thing I made is a granny stitch cardigan. This I used a 6mm crochet hook in the Karen Jumbo Ombre in the color Salmon. I used about 3 total skeins. I think I have a little bit left over, and it took me about a month. Nope. I started it in September of 2025. I took quite a few months break from it before I picked it up again, and then I finished it in, I think, like a few days. So I technically finished it on the 20th of January, however, it had been sitting for quite a while. But yeah, it's just your normal granny stitch cardigan. I actually did for the first time, I included some rows on the like back where I joined the 2 cardigans together, because typically I like the little fold that it gives you on the like collar portion. However, I felt that because this was such a larger size, it needed that little extra space. So I went ahead and did that, and I think it turned out really good. I'm really happy with it. I'm glad I went with that little extra space in the neck and I added the extra rows on the bottom. Yeah, I think it looks really good and I'm really happy with that. Next up is the Wild Rose dress. We are now into the Finish All My Whips category for January. So this was the Wild Rose dress by Mermaid Cat. I started it back in July of 2025 and I just recently finished it on the 23rd of this year. I was using a 3.5mm needle and some lavender 2-weight yarn. I don't exactly know where I got it. I think I thrifted this yarn, so I didn't have a label or a content or anything. It feels very acrylic-y with, I think it might be a blend because it's not pure acrylic, I'm pretty sure. But I used a total of 4 very large skeins, and yeah, I think this turned out great. I have not had a time to steam it or anything, or wash it, but yeah, I'm happy with it. So that's pretty good. We're doing really good. Typically, sometimes I feel like I'm like, I don't really like this project, so we'll see. Next up is the Camilla Bucket Bag. This is by TL Yarn Crafts. I started it back in January of 2025, and I finished it in January 2025. So it took me a year to make. This was part of Hobie's advent calendar for 2024, and I just didn't get around to it to finishing it or even starting it until January, and it just wasn't one that I always wanted to pick up, and so then I didn't, and it didn't get finished until now. But I used a 4.4mm crochet hook, the Friends Cotton Silk from Hobie, and I used 4 skeins, 2 of the yellow, 1 white, and 1 of the pink. And I did actually make it a little bit bigger than it said to in the pattern. I accidentally did an extra repeat round of the bottom like circle base, and so The proportions look a little bit weird, which I'm not super happy about, but it turned out really cute and definitely will work as a little bag to take some things on the go. We have 2 more projects to go through. The next one is going to be the crochet curtains. These were probably one of the longest standing whips that I had for that video. I've had these through 2 different moves, so I think I started them either early 2023 or early 2024. I think it was either March or April of either of those years. These used a 4mm crochet hook and Patton's Astra yarn, I believe that's how you pronounce it. These were crocheted just the granny stitch, but in rows all the way across, 2 rows per color in this kind of repeating, alternating-ish pattern. I used a lot of skeins. These aren't very big skeins, so I think I ended up using 4 total skeins of the blue and the light yellow, probably double that for the darker marigoldy color yellow, so like 8 skeins, and so then probably like 10, maybe even 12 of the gray. Plus I used a good portion of a Caron Simply Soft in the color, I think, Stonewashed Gray or something, and that was for the border and to sew it up together. So this took a lot of yarn, but I think they turned out really, really good. I'm really happy with them, and to have them up on my window. So yeah, this was quite the process of crocheting those over the last few years. Granted, I also didn't touch them for a good year of that, due to all of the ends that I didn't know how to deal with. The very last thing I made in January was I finished my Patchwork Scarf. Now you guys haven't actually seen this. It was part of a different video, but I used a 6.5mm crochet hook, and I used a bunch of my scraps. I have a big box of different scrap yarns that I was able to make a actually really good dent in. Some of them I have finished those colors completely, but I started this back in I started this back in December, probably around the 14th, kind of mid-December, and I finished it right at the end of January. So I used quite a lot of yarn for this, which was perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. And it kind of has this nice patchwork vibe because of all of these scrap yarn that I used, which again is exactly what I wanted. I definitely tried to disperse the colors as much as I could to make it look very random, and I think I did a pretty good job. This was made using a Tunisian simple stitch, and I worked as I went, so I had no sewing and I had no ends from sewing all the squares together because they were all crocheted together. I just had each individual colors ends to weave in, which I technically haven't finished, but all of the crochet is done and I just have to weave in maybe half of the ends, because I did some of them because I did the border. However, I'm gonna mark it as done. It's all steamed and everything, and I think it looks really, really good and exactly what I had in mind. So far for January, I feel like we're doing really well. I feel like a lot of these projects I'm very, very happy with. Some of them, maybe I would tweak it here and there, but honestly, I think so far it's been really good, and it's been interesting to kind of keep track of all of my projects that I make, because I felt like last year I was making things and I didn't realize what I had made, or I had forgotten about things that I had made. And so this I feel like is nice to be like, oh yes, like here's what I've made, or so that like if someone asks me like, oh, what do you make? I sometimes sit there and I'm like, what do I make? I'm not really sure. So this has been really fun and exciting for me, and I hope it is for you too. So thank you so much for watching this little recap with me. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like it. Subscribe so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Or if you want, you can go see what I've already posted. I have quite a few videos for you waiting for you to click on them. And give them a watch. I do a lot of vlogs, a lot of crochet vlogs, so if you're into that stuff, make sure you stick around. And yeah, I'll see you next week.